Good. How are you guys? Do you want me to talk into the mic? Use the mic. Go.
James Hawker, Detroit News. I know this past summer you talked about envisioning Danny and Vlad playing some games together, I guess. Now you've been able to kind of see that in practice, I guess, just how well does that kind of work out?
From an offensive standpoint, Danny and Vlad have really clicked. There's been days when they're still trying to stay out of each other's way and figure out the best way for them to both be effective. And overall, I'd say 90% of the time they've been on the court together, they've found some good rhythm.
And I guess, what does that period, you think, what advantages does that give you guys on offense?
Well, obviously, basketball is a game of size. When you look at the NBA, when you look at the highest level that the game's played at, there's positional size at every position, typically, with the exception being the point guard. So it just allows us to be bigger. It allows us, our court dimensions don't change as players get bigger. And so just to have that type of size that can play together, and when you're bigger, you can offset a little bit of foot speed. And so I do think that those guys will be able to cover for each other. They'll be switchable. And Danny's shown a real ability to guard on the perimeter, moving his feet.
How do you guys help Danny in that?
Well, Danny's put in a lot of work with our strength staff. Coach Aldred and Danny spent a lot of time together. He's changed his body. He's moving better. His diet's better. And so he's taken it as a challenge to be able to guard these smaller, quicker players.
Dusty, how has it been, coming into a new program, bringing in a lot of transfer? How's it been getting everybody to mesh and incorporate and play with each other?
Well, it's kind of the new normal. And so what we try to do is identify players in the portal that come from winning programs, and they may not have been the star of the team, but one of the best players, and they had high assist turnover ratios, lower usage than some other guys, and we just felt like winning would be important to those guys, and they'd represent Michigan the right way, and they cared about their teammates because that's the best way to predict future behavior is past performance. So we're very intentional about the characteristics that the guys we brought in from the portal played with.
Dusty, when you were a student manager at Indiana under Bob Knight, was there anything that really stuck with you that you maybe implement as a coach or remember the most?
Yeah, as an assistant coach, I don't think I used a lot of what Coach Knight did and said, and immediately after becoming head coach, I caught myself saying a lot of his expressions and phrases and thinking about a lot of the things that he talked about. But most importantly, his ability to take complex concepts and make them seem simple, make players understand in a quick, efficient manner. Efficiency of language outside of the four-letter words is something he was very adept at. But I learned so much. I mean, there's no question. I wouldn't be here today without the coaches I grew up playing for, and then just being around Coach Knight every day.
You mentioned Vlad is someone that you see every summer. Adam, I guess where did he improve the most this year? Obviously, with an eye on the physical nature of the Big Ten.
Well, he's continued to add more to his game each year, and that's selfishly for his own personal ambition to play hopefully at the highest level of professional basketball, but also just to be more of a matchup nightmare and have more positional versatility. He works incredibly hard. He's a great teammate. His bread and butter will still be his physicality, scoring around the rim. I think midpoint through the season last year before he got hurt in the Arizona game, he was shooting maybe 79% from the field halfway through the season. So it shows his ability to dominate, and that was playing several Power 5 schools. And so his bread and butter is always going to be dominating the paint, being able to finish around the rim, rebounding, blocking shots. But he's added some range to his jump shot, and his passing and dribbling ability continues to improve.
Dusty, I'm curious, since you took over, what have you seen from the NIL efforts at Michigan, and what's kind of been your relationship with those guys like the champions?
We work hand in hand with those guys, and we went from a place where we weren't going to be to recruit to being competitive in our market. Do we still have room to go? Yeah, there's a lot of room for growth. We do feel like we got probably a little bit later start than most, but all the fundraising efforts have been I think beneficial for everyone. We're selling a really unique thing where it's access to our program. It's and we have some guys that are marketable themselves. So it's going well. Is it as good as it needs to be? No, and I don't think it ever will be. We're always going to have to be chasing more.
Coming into Michigan, with the coaching change, you have to, go to the transfer portal and get your guys. How much of an emphasis are you going to put on the transfer portal going forward versus, high school recruiting?
I think it's situation by situation. We put a lot of time and effort in recruiting high school players, and we would like retention and continuity to be staples of Michigan basketball going forward, but there will always be times when we have to find immediate solutions in the transfer portal, and there will be good players that present themselves that we're going to have to go after. But we would like a majority of our roster to be freshmen coming in and growing together, learning and having some institutional knowledge of Michigan.
Did you feel like you had a hidden gem with LJ when you were at FAU? And then is it a real possibility for him to impact right away?
I knew we signed a really good player. I don't think I realized how good of a player. He's adapted really well to this level. I think he's already surpassed all expectations. When you sign freshmen and they're not in the McDonald's game or playing with USA Basketball, you anticipate it to be a slower process. He's been pretty impactful from day one. Obviously, he has to do it on the biggest stage under the bright lights, but it doesn't seem like anything phases him. He's won a lot of big games in high school on the AAU circuit, and he's just a young guy that is unflappable.
Is he a lead guard?
Right now, he's a scoring combo guard. He has to refine some skills to be a guard who's just as good at distributing and playmaking as he is scoring and creating shots. But he's made a jump, but he has ability to get to where he needs to get to with the ball, and he shot it incredibly well. I think his percentages might be the highest on our team off catch and shoot threes and off the bounce from the from the summer and the early fall. So hopefully this can continue. It's tough to be a freshman in this league, but he's changed his body, and he's a competitor. It's been tough because we've had a few guys out almost every single day, and it's been minor issues. It's a cold here, an illness there, but it's been good because we've got the freshmen a lot of reps, a lot of live reps in practice. The growth of Fat Brooks, Darrell Brooks, in the last couple weeks has been exponential. He went from a guy that was, maybe even a redshirt candidate to impacting practice every single day and looking more and more like a guy that could have a role this year. Obviously, there's a lot of time left, but we're still trying to put together the right combinations, and until we have the group playing together and the nuances, it's going to be hard for us to tell. So we might be a little bit fluid and liquid for a while. Everyone's kind of settled into their own, running their own departments. Coach Boynton is running our defense. And he works directly with Coach Joyner and Coach Church, and they'll head up most of the scouting as far as the opponent's patterns and sets in place and whatnot. Coach Akeem is working with me primarily on offense, and Drew Williamson's also assisting offense, but running our player development program. So as far as the big picture plan and the day-to-day, he's managing, making sure our guys are getting in extra work. Now that we have more than 4 hours a week, we can spend more time with our guys individually, and that's the biggest benefit of adding staff members. We can give our guys more personalized attention outside of practice every day. Hey,
a lot of emphasis about having not just, a lot of the size is talked about, but a lot of size in the guard wing position as well, especially with those perimeter defenders you have. Roddy Gale, Reuben Jones, all proven defenders. Fat in practice since they defender. When you have a bunch of big physical perimeter defending wings, how does that change defensive scheme, the perimeter standpoint, and how does that affect interior play and the ways that you set it?
Well, the last couple of years we've taken a lot of pride in giving up unassisted baskets, making teams beat us by playing one-on-one and shooting tough twos, and we've been very successful doing it. I think that's the same thing that positional versatility allows you to do, to be more switchable, to keep the ball in front, to stay on a rotation, stay on balance, and if you can do that, then you're a good rebounding team. And if you put those guys on the court together and you end up being a great rebounding team, then that bodes well for our transition offense. So this week, actually, we put our biggest group together on one team and our smallest group on another, just to see if the small group could hold their own on the defensive glass and whatnot. And those guys, the group you're talking about, the wings with size, all played together one day, and they looked very good. They were able to disrupt the offense of the bigger team, and so it just gives us another way to play. Coaches have termed the term bulletproof, or just in essence, being able to win no matter what the style of the game, fast, slow, big, small, being able to adjust your opponent and find a way to win on that given night, and that's what positional versatility gives you.
And coming off those like four-guard lineups four-guard-ish lineups you ran at FAU, how has, if at all, a little bit changed dynamic of the lineup to a little bit more wing heavy, a little bit more forward heavy? How has that changed the way that you go about coaching, how you practice, how you do scheme?
Very little, and the reason is Danny Wolf's as much of a guard as any of those guys we had at FAU. Now, he's still learning the nuance as far as if you have a smaller, quicker, athletic guy underneath you, you can't play the same way as if you have a bigger guy guarding you on the perimeter. So he's still adjusting and learning those tricks now. But it's going to be the same thing. We're going to be hunting the same shots. We'll probably get there a little bit differently. We shot a lot of threes off the bounce at FAU. I think this year, because of our size, you're 6'10 versus 5'10, the shots aren't as contested, so I think we're going to get more catch and shoot threes and less off the bounce. But I think all those things will be answered by how we're being defended and how we can adjust, because there's still going to be some growth process.
The bulletproof thing, how important is that in a tournament setting when you got to win 6 games and it might have to be one way one night, another way?
Incredibly important. There have been years whenever I was an assistant coach and we'd miss out on the NCAA tournament because we had one player get in foul trouble and we couldn't adjust to that one, bad fortune. And so you have to be able to avoid those. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you're healthy and you're never in foul trouble. But if a team goes small and you can match and you can switch and you can counter that, it just mitigates the risk, and that's all we're trying to do anyway. Every game's so different.
Jones is surprised this morning. You faced him last year, but I guess since you got to campus, what has surprised you?
He shot the ball really well, and his percentages have always been good on low volume. His defensive instincts, a lot like Fat. His hands, his anticipation are elite. I think in former lives they were probably football secondary, DBs, the way they have instincts about playing the basketball. But Ruben, he's steady, he's consistent, and those are the things at this level that you'll win with. Guys who are there every day, with the same approach, because it's the reason that our freshmen have gotten a lot better, because they've just been real steady with their approach and their work hasn't deviated based on their motion. So they've made jumps, and we're going to need all of them this year. Like I said earlier, this is a team where there could be 8 straight games potentially with a different leading scorer.
He seems like someone that can play a few different roles. Where do you like him the most?
Well, when he's played with Trey, we've had him off the ball. When he's been with LJ, we've moved him onto the ball a little bit more so he could set the table. And then when he's been with Danny, he's been a little bit more of a secondary spot-up guy coming off dribble handoffs. So those are the things that, as we get healthy as a group, that we'll learn to play with each other. We'll evaluate our lineups and our combinations and hopefully try to mirror each other's minutes based on who they play well with and what combinations work.
You mentioned that different things scored. I talked to Hakeem about this a lot. He said that one of the great things he thought about your team was that basically the guys would all play roles in previous schools. It wasn't a collection of guys who'd always been the star and were now having to scale down. I'm curious how much that was a conscious effort to recruiting the team and how it manifests itself.
Well, I think first and foremost we wanted to recruit winning players, guys that have been in winning situations. And if you look at the Final Four the last several years, how many of those were carried by one player or a superstar putting a bunch of role guys? They had great balance. I asked our players in one huddle, who was UConn's best player last year? And one of them said, I think the 6th man might have been their best player in his opinion. So they had 5 or 6 guys that on any given night could be their best player. And if you want to win over a 31-plus game season, it's going to be difficult if you're relying on one or two guys to carry you. And we feel like we have a team that on any given night, and it doesn't put too much pressure on each individual where they feel like they have to carry the load. They're all capable. I mean, Namari Burnett's going to lead us in scoring some games. Will Cheddar's going to lead us in scoring. Trey Donaldson. Roddy Gill is going to lead us in several games from as far as scoring. So I think going down the line, that will make us more dangerous than just relying on one or two superstars. Well, Namari played for two very successful programs before last year, and let's not act like Michigan wasn't winning at a high level in recent memory. A couple bad years, couple down years, and a lot goes into winning, and a lot goes into losing as well. Some ill fortune, some bad pieces, some guys leaving too early for the NBA, whatever the case. But Namari's won at a high level, and he's a good player. Will Cheddar brings as much to the team from an intangible standpoint as anyone on our roster. To me, he's the definition of a winner, even though the team won 8 games last year. He brings a lot of winning traits to the team, and I think when you have a group that's done it, that gives the guys that haven't done it yet that are capable of doing it. It was the same process for us at FAU. Before we had won big, we had guys that were knocking at the door, and then because they've been in those situations, they believe they could get over the hump, and I think that's the case with Will and Namari and even Chase.
The state of Indiana is usually a hotbed for high school talent, obviously. If guys don't go to an in-state school, they usually end up somewhere around the Big Ten. Can you, obviously being from there, having connections, speak to the talent that comes out of the state, and will Michigan have a presence in the state?
Absolutely. We're obviously going to focus on the state of Michigan first, but we'll recruit the entire Midwest. We'll dip our toes. I mean, that's the beauty of Michigan with the national brand and the expansion of the league. We can be competitive recruiting California or Washington State or Texas for that matter. So we're going to try to find the best players that represent Michigan, but we're always going to start in our state first and build from there. And then obviously we're looking for guys with positional size and shooting ability and toughness and basketball IQ. And Indiana's one of those states that produces a lot of that, like North Carolina, like Texas. So we're going to recruit all those states. But yeah, we'll definitely, because it's driving distance, dip into Indiana and everywhere around the Midwest. It was a testament to their character, where you have big guys who were bringing in other big guys, and they're hosting them, they're going to dinner with them, they're selling Michigan and winning and the culture and what we're building together, because they didn't make it about themselves. And I think everyone on our team, they want to leave a legacy at Michigan, and so those guys were invaluable. We wouldn't have. I mean, we've been bumping into each other. We knew where to eat. We knew what to do on visits. We knew what to sell, what to stay away from. We even knew the academic piece, what works and what doesn't, and so they helped us accelerate the process. Correct. Yeah, my middle son Charlie.
Yeah, what's that been like?
It's great to see him every day. I think he's done a nice job of earning the trust of his teammates, that when he's at the basketball facility, he's not my son. He's their teammate, and I treat him accordingly during practice. He's called me dad once in facility on accident, and it was in the office, and I gave him the rock raised eyebrow. Yeah.
I guess what have you seen from him on that front, but also just when he's brought to practices and better.
Yeah, full transparency. I take Roddy for granted because he's zero maintenance. He's the ultimate teammate. He cuts for his teammates. He passes to the open man. He competes every single day. He doesn't complain if he doesn't get the ball. He doesn't show bad body language if the play doesn't find him. And so guys like that, sometimes as a coach, you take them for granted. And I remind myself daily of how much I appreciate Roddy. And obviously being in the Big Ten is gonna pay dividends, how tough it is to win at Minnesota and at Michigan State and at Wisconsin, how tough it is every single night. So I think Roddy being through the fires, he's gonna be able to help the young guys explain how physical it's going to be, how we have to play through tough calls, tough environments, things like that. So he's brought a lot to the table already, and we anticipate his role going forward will grow as the season goes.
What's his role going to be on this team? What's his impact?
The biggest part Sam can impact the game is shooting the basketball. He's got unlimited range. When he walks in the gym, he's in range. He gets it off quick, and he is confident. If he can see the rim, he's letting it fly. And if he squeezed off 10 threes in a couple games this year, we would have a very, very happy coach. Assuming they're the right types of threes, but he just gives you a different dimension, being 6'10", with the ability to space the floor. And when you have guys that space the floor like that, you get layups and dunks. Where if Vlad's playing with a normal player, those layups and dunks aren't layups and dunks. They're 7-8 foot finishes because teams are able to load the paint. With Sam, you can't. You almost have to play 4 versus 4 because he's that lethal and deadly when he's on. He's getting better defensively. We're expanding his game. We expect him to be a better offensive rebounder than he is today. But he continues to prove, and we're gradually expanding his role, and he'll be a big part of success this year. Coach Knight's approach to every single day. It wasn't just the games. Everyone in the building was expected to perform at a high level on a practice, in a workout, a weight session. And that was the standard at that time. Coach Knight had the standard of everyone was chasing Indiana. Every time you played Indiana, it was a big game. It might have been the biggest game on the schedule for most teams. And so we're trying to get to the point where when you're playing Michigan, it's a sellout, it's a T-shirt game, it's all those things, and those are our expectations. But I've said it ad nauseum. His ability to teach, to communicate is second to none. Not very excited at all, to be honest. I've been back a few times. I being in Florida. I don't get home often. I was there 9 years and is in the deep south for a long time, so I didn't get home often. It'd be distracting because there's so many people there that I love and care about. Other than that, we're trying to beat their butts. I mean, we're all competitors. That's competition. That place was a big part of my journey, and I wouldn't be sitting here today without it. But now our job is to compete against them for championships. But I think the first, probably practice the day before, it's going to feel odd, and then it's on us, coaches and players, to block out all distracting information and focus on what's important.
Obviously, basketball is basketball, but even within conferences, basketball changes a lot. Big Ten is kind of known for its kind of grinding play style. But you, as a coach, are somewhat known for fast break play style. Sometimes even 7 seconds or less kind of offense from the Suns. How have you been trying to adjust to the Big Ten style of basketball, where they're going to try to grind out the game and slow the pace down, try to adjust to that, but also try to counter that with your own style of play that you have? How has that been going?
Well, fortunately for us, we had a snapshot where we played 2 Big Ten teams last year. I don't know how many Power 5. We played several Power 5s, and the only 2 losses we had were against the 2 Big Ten teams because they were able to bog us down. But we were very physical ourselves. We simply tried to rebound the ball and get up the floor before those physical, tough defenses could get set. And if we do that, then we felt like our chances of scoring would be greater. Actually, the Illinois game, neither one of us could stop the other one. And then in the Northwestern game, neither one of us could score on the other one. So I think that's going to be how the Big Ten is this year for us. There's going to be nights the game looks a lot different. How the game's officiated based on how experienced the crew is, there's a lot of factors in how the game's called, but we have to find a way to get the ball up the floor quickly enough before the defense gets set where we can generate a good shot and we're not having to get into a bunch of slugfest, because I'm not sure we're built for those slugfest right now. There's no question.
Dustin, they asked you this morning, what do you think is going to surprise us? Can you talk about why you think we're going to Trey's and
That's the beauty of our team. We have such balance and parity. Roddy's been, I don't want to say surprise, because he scored almost 14 points a game in this league last year on a good basketball team that started off really well and kind of hit a tough patch. But I think we're going to be a team that just surprises everyone because of our ability to play different lineups and have a different best player each night.
How was John Beeline been a resource for you, and what was it like having him up at that retreat?
I mean, I talked to Coach Beeline at least once a week since I got the job, every other week, and just his desire to help us coaches be better coaches, knowing what to look for in advance, just, pointing us to the right direction to people that could help our players and program on campus has been amazing. He's a Hall of Fame basketball coach that is as good of a teacher as there is alive today, and so it would be, I guess, irresponsible for us to not try to learn from him and bring him into a place that he loves as much as he does. I think the storylines. I'm sure Vlad's history, being from a place where he hasn't been able to see his family for the amount of years he has it. And then Danny, with his family's connection to Michigan, made a natural fit. And then obviously just 2 7-footers playing together in such a unique style. I think it makes a good storyline. We could have brought 7 or 8 different guys here, and they would have represented Michigan in the same fashion. Just those above me decided that these two would be right for this moment.
Sorry, I'm
No.
late getting over
Sorry.
here, but just want to ask about this being a new era of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry with obviously 2 first-year coaches. What your thoughts are on stepping into that rivalry?
I'm excited about it. Coach Diebler and I, we've known each other for a long time as assistant coaches in the SEC. Florida being a high academic school and Vanderbilt being a very prestigious academic institution, we cross paths a lot on the recruiting trails. And so we've known each other for a while, and then obviously being an assistant who's sliding into a really good opportunity at Ohio State for a team that I think is being underrated and undervalued right now, and he's doing it the right way. He has veteran guards, he's got versatility up front. We're excited to compete against them. It's in college athletics, rivalries are healthy. But rivalries are only rivalries if both teams are really good and competitive. And hopefully going forward, we're both competing for championships, and I'd love to see them be runners-up to us every year.
What has it been like having an Ohio State player, having Roddy? I know you've talked about that locally, but just what is it like to – that's an interesting wrinkle that doesn't – happens more in college basketball these days, but we haven't seen it much in this specific rivalry.
Yeah, Roddy being from New York, we laughed and said he learned to hate Michigan at the time, and so now he's having to learn to hate Ohio State. Jokes aside, I mean, it's a different. You see NBA players and NFL players immediately after they battle it out, tooth and nail for however long each contest is. They're congratulating each other and patting each other on the back for laying it on the line and competing the way they did. And that's kind of how college athletics have come to. I think for the guys on the field, it's not as life or death. Let's compete and do the absolute best we can. And then after that, it's on to the next thing and preparation. But obviously the intensity, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's just a normal game. That's a big game for both programs.
The journey to Michigan, I know seemingly every school in America probably was calling you in the offseason, and I know Ohio State was probably, there was some interest there. What was that interest level like on your end?
Our season was going on, so luckily we all have representation to kind of sort through things behind the scenes so you don't get distracted on what's important. Obviously, with the success that our team had at FAU, that provided me and my family with some opportunities. And at the end of the day, you try to find a place that just fits you. And since I was at Eastern Michigan 18 years ago and felt the power of Michigan being 5 miles away, I always held this place to extremely high regard. And then in today's climate, I felt like Michigan was a place that would be really hard for players, for young students to leave if they didn't play basketball. And so continuity, retention are all very important to our staff. So we just felt like Michigan was the best place for us to be able to do that. And Ohio State got a great coach. All the other jobs got a great coach, and it all works itself out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Time for 1 or 2. Now that you're recruiting for next season, like when you got here, it was all about the next season, but now it's the future. How has this staff been received, and what has it been like, hosting some of these guys for the weekend?
The official visits obviously are awesome. Home football games with 110, 111,000 fans. To feel the electricity on our campus and the passion that our alumni, our students, our local community have for the University of Michigan is unparalleled. And so it's been a blast. Obviously, when we came in and we get a late start, we still have some things to sort through as you're building a roster. But we like where we are. We're involved in guys that we really believe in, and now it's finding the right pieces to complement what we already have. Coach Moore and his staff are guys that you want to root for because they're great guys, they're great coaches, and they pour into their players. And those are the guys that I like to be around. They've been great. We've taken every recruit through the facility. They come over and you'll see their staff shooting hoops or bringing recruits through. It's a true partnership at Michigan where we're all rooting for each other. Their success helps us. Our success will help them. But it's been fun to watch because obviously they had such high expectations. They lose all those guys. They're rebuilding, but yet the expectations never change. And that's why you come to Michigan, because those expectations, they don't change. Well, ours probably, we don't have the national championship pedigree quite yet. Hopefully in 1 year we can say yes. Yeah.